Good morning/afternoon, everyone. I want you to think about a moment in your life when someone said something that stuck with you. Maybe it lifted you up, or maybe it hurt you. Now, think about how long it took for them to say it. Probably less than 30 seconds. What I've learned in my years of research is that some of the most important things in life, courage, connection, and learning, don't happen in hours or days. They happen in small moments. Moments that seem ordinary but hold extraordinary power. In education, 30 seconds can change everything. It's the difference between a student feeling seen or feeling invisible. It's the pause before we react, the breath before we judge, the moment we choose kindness over indifference. A teacher who says, "I believe in you," can shift the trajectory of a student's life in just 30 seconds. Vulnerability isn't about weakness. It's about courage. And courage is built in small, everyday choices. Asking a question in class even when you're afraid of looking foolish, that takes 30 seconds of bravery. A teacher sharing their own learning struggles to connect with a struggling student, that takes 30 seconds of authenticity. These moments of realness create trust, and trust is the foundation of learning. One of the most painful things I've studied is the impact of shame, especially in education. It only takes 30 seconds for a student to internalize a message like, "You're not smart enough," or "You'll never get this." But it also takes 30 seconds for a teacher or peer to say, "I see you. I know this is hard, but you can do it." The choice is ours. Do we choose shame, or do we choose, "Here's my challenge to you"? Pay attention to those 30-second moments. The ones where you can show up, speak up, or lift someone up. Because in education, in leadership, in life, it's not the big speeches or long lectures that leave the greatest impact. It's the small moments that shape who we become. We often think that change, growth, and impact require massive effort. We imagine grand speeches, elaborate plans, or years of hard work. But what if I told you that some of the most defining moments in our lives, both the ones that build us up and the ones that break us down, happen in mere seconds? We underestimate the power of small moments, yet they are the foundation upon which everything meaningful is built. Think about a time when someone said something to you that completely shifted your perspective. Maybe it was a simple phrase like, "You can do this," spoken by a teacher when you were struggling, or a friend who said, "I'm here for you," during a difficult time. Those words probably didn't take more than a few seconds to say, yet their impact lasted far longer. Maybe it was a look of understanding from someone when you felt out of place, a hand on your shoulder when you needed reassurance, or even a moment of eye contact that made you feel seen. These small moments, ones that might seem fleeting or insignificant, are often the ones that shape us the most. In an educational setting, we see this play out every single day. A teacher who pauses for just a moment before responding to a struggling student can choose to react with frustration or with patience. That moment of choice, which takes no longer than 30 seconds, can determine whether that student feels encouraged to keep trying or whether they shut down and decide they are not capable. A student who hesitates before making fun of a classmate has just a brief moment to decide whether to go along with the joke or to choose kindness instead. A single sentence, a single reaction, a single moment can set a chain of events into motion that affects not just one person, but an entire culture within a classroom, a school, or even a community. Small moments create big impact because they are the building blocks of relationships, trust, and belonging. We often don't remember entire conversations, but we do remember how someone made us feel in a single moment. If a child constantly hears, "You never get this right," even if it's just in passing, they start to believe it. If they repeatedly hear, "I see your effort, and I believe in you," that becomes part of their identity, too. Words that take seconds to say can linger in someone's mind for years. It's not just about words. Actions in small moments speak just as loudly. Consider the teacher who notices a student sitting alone at lunch and takes a few seconds to walk over and start a conversation. The friend who, instead of brushing off someone's worry, takes a moment to ask, "What's going on?" The leader who, rather than moving past a struggling team member, pauses just long enough to say, "Tell me what you need." These actions don't require hours or even minutes, just a few seconds of intentional presence, but they have the power to make people feel valued, supported, and understood. What makes small moments so powerful is that they are available to us at all times. We don't have to wait for the right time to make an impact, because opportunities for these moments present themselves every single day. The challenge is that we have to be aware enough to notice them. We have to be willing to slow down, even for just a few seconds, to be intentional with our words and actions. Sometimes, we assume that only the big things matter: the awards, the major achievements, the big life events. But when we look back, what we often remember most are the seemingly small interactions that made a difference. The teacher who took the time to say, "I know this is hard, but I believe in you." The coach who told us, "You have what it takes." The friend who noticed we weren't ourselves and simply sat with us in silence. These are the things that truly shape us. On the flip side, small moments also have the power to do harm. A sarcastic remark that takes just a second to say can stay in someone's mind for years. A dismissive glance can make someone feel unworthy. A teacher who rolls their eyes when a student asks a question may have just sent a silent but powerful message that their curiosity isn't welcome. The student who laughs at another student's mistake in class might not think twice about it, but for the person on the receiving end, that moment could reinforce a deep fear of failure. Because these moments are so small, they often go unnoticed by the person creating them, but they are never unnoticed by the person experiencing them. This is why awareness is so important. The words we say, the expressions we make, the tiny actions we take, whether intentional or unintentional, have a ripple effect. It takes only 30 seconds to change someone's day for the better or to add to their doubts and insecurities. What if we became more intentional about how we use those 30-second moments? What if, instead of brushing past opportunities to encourage, we took the time to say what we mean? What if, instead of reacting out of frustration, we paused just long enough to respond with empathy? What if we trained ourselves to notice those everyday moments where we can make a difference, even in ways that seem small? It's easy to believe that change requires grand gestures, but the truth is that it starts with the tiny, consistent moments of showing up, paying attention, and choosing kindness. The way we build confidence in students isn't through a single motivational speech, it's in the everyday reinforcement that their efforts matter. The way we create a culture of belonging in a school isn't through a one-time initiative, it's in the daily choices to listen, to support, and to be present. At the heart of it all is the idea that every small moment is an opportunity to choose how we show up for others. The reality is, we won't always get it right. We will have moments where we react too quickly, where we let frustration take over, where we miss an opportunity to offer encouragement. But the good news is that we get another chance, another moment, another 30 seconds to do it differently next time. If we start paying attention, we'll begin to see that the small moments were never really small at all. They were the foundation of every connection, every lesson learned, every step toward courage. They were shaping us all along. It only takes 30 seconds to make an impact. Let's make them count. Vulnerability is often misunderstood. Many people see it as a weakness, something to be avoided or hidden. But in reality, vulnerability is not weakness, it is courage. It is the willingness to show up, even when there are no guarantees. It is the ability to say, "I don't know, I need help," or "I'm struggling," without fear of judgment. And nowhere is vulnerability more important than in learning. Whether you are a student, a teacher, or a lifelong learner, your ability to embrace vulnerability directly impacts your ability to grow. Learning, by its very nature, requires us to be vulnerable. It requires us to admit that we don't have all the answers. It asks us to step into the unknown, to risk making mistakes, to expose what we don't understand. And yet, in many educational settings, vulnerability is often discouraged. Students are taught that getting the right answer is more important than asking the right questions. Teachers feel pressure to always have everything figured out, rather than admitting when they are still learning too. But the truth is, without vulnerability, there is no true learning. Think about a student who hesitates to raise their hand in class. They are afraid of getting the answer wrong, afraid of looking foolish, afraid of what their peers might think. In that moment, they are faced with a choice: take the risk and ask the question, or stay silent and remain in the comfort of not exposing what they don't know. If the environment around them does not encourage vulnerability, if they have seen others be laughed at for making mistakes, they will likely choose silence. They will prioritize protecting themselves over deepening their understanding. And with every moment of choosing safety over curiosity, their growth is limited. Now, imagine a classroom where vulnerability is welcomed. A place where students see their teacher admit, I don't know the answer to that, but let's find out together. A place where mistakes are seen as part of the learning process rather than something to be ashamed of. In this kind of environment, the student who hesitates to raise their hand might feel just a little braver. They might take that small but significant step of asking a question. And in doing so, they not only open the door to deeper learning for themselves, but they also give permission for others to do the same. Vulnerability is contagious. When one person is willing to be open, honest, and real, it creates space for others to do the same. This is why the role of the teacher is so important. When an educator is willing to share their own struggles with learning, their own experiences of failure and growth, they give students a powerful gift, the gift of knowing they are not alone. A teacher who says, "I used to struggle with this too," or "I remember how hard this was for me," is not showing weakness, they are showing strength. They are showing students that learning is a process, that no one is expected to have it all figured out right away, and that growth comes from persistence, not perfection. But vulnerability in learning is not just about students and teachers. It extends beyond the classroom and into every aspect of life. Think about the moments in your own life when you learned something truly valuable. It likely wasn't in a moment of certainty or ease, but in a moment of challenge, discomfort, or even failure. Maybe it was the time you had to admit you didn't understand something, the time you had to ask for help, or the time you had to try again after getting it wrong. These are the moments where real learning happens, because they require you to step outside your comfort zone. And stepping outside your comfort zone is, by definition, an act of vulnerability. The fear of vulnerability in learning is deeply rooted in the fear of judgment. No one wants to be seen as incompetent, unprepared, or unintelligent. This fear can be so strong that it prevents people from taking risks, from trying new things, from pushing themselves beyond what they already know. But the irony is that avoiding vulnerability actually limits learning. When we stay in our comfort zones, when we refuse to ask questions, when we avoid challenges that might expose our weaknesses, we are not protecting ourselves, we are holding ourselves back. One of the most powerful shifts that can happen in education is moving from a culture of performance to a culture of growth. In a performance-based culture, the focus is on looking smart, getting the right answers, and avoiding mistakes at all costs. But in a growth-based culture, the focus is on effort, curiosity, and resilience. Mistakes are not something to be ashamed of, they are stepping stones toward understanding. Questions are not signs of ignorance, they are signs of engagement. And learning is not about proving what you already know, it's about expanding your knowledge, even when that means struggling along the way. Creating this kind of culture requires intentionality. It requires teachers, leaders, and learners themselves to model vulnerability in everyday moments. It means responding to mistakes with encouragement rather than criticism. It means celebrating effort just as much as achievement. It means normalizing the idea that no one has all the answers, and that's okay. And it means shifting the way we define success not as the absence of failure, but as the willingness to keep going despite it. Vulnerability in learning is also about the willingness to unlearn. Sometimes, the most difficult part of growth is letting go of what we thought we knew. This can be especially challenging in education, where students and teachers alike can become attached to their own perspectives and beliefs. But learning requires openness. It requires the humility to say, maybe I was wrong, or maybe there's another way to see this. This is not easy. It takes courage to change your mind, to admit when new information challenges your existing understanding, to be flexible instead of rigid. But the most powerful learners are not the ones who cling to what they already know, they are the ones who are willing to adapt, to evolve, and to keep questioning. In the end, the power of vulnerability in learning comes down to one simple truth: if we are not willing to be uncomfortable, we cannot grow. Growth is, by its very nature, uncomfortable. It requires us to stretch, to challenge ourselves, to take risks. And none of that is possible without vulnerability. The good news is that vulnerability, like any other skill, can be practiced. Every time we ask a question, every time we admit we don't know something, every time we try again after failing, we are strengthening our ability to be vulnerable. And the more we practice, the easier it becomes. So the next time you find yourself hesitating to speak up, to ask, to try, to learn, remember this: vulnerability is not a weakness to be avoided. It is the key to growth, the foundation of learning, and the most courageous thing you can do. Shame and empathy are two powerful forces in education, shaping how students see themselves, how they engage with learning, and how they develop confidence and resilience. Every interaction in a learning environment has the potential to move a student toward one or the other. Shame shuts students down, making them feel unworthy, incapable, or afraid of trying. Empathy, on the other hand, creates safety, connection, and the belief that effort and growth matter more than perfection. The difference between these two experiences can determine whether a student embraces learning with curiosity or withdraws in fear of failure. Shame in education often starts in small, subtle ways. It can come from a dismissive tone when a student asks a question, a sarcastic remark about a mistake, or a classroom culture where only the highest achievers are recognized. It can be triggered by comparing one student's performance to another's, by highlighting failures without acknowledging effort, or by making students feel as though their worth is tied to their grades. Shame is not just about being told outright that you are not good enough, it is also about the small, everyday moments that make students doubt their own abilities. A single moment of shame can stick with a student for years, shaping how they see themselves long after the lesson is over. When a student experiences shame, their natural reaction is often to withdraw. They may stop asking questions, avoid difficult tasks, or give up entirely. Shame tells them that struggling means they are not smart enough, that making mistakes means they are a failure, and that they should avoid anything that might expose their weaknesses. This is why shame is so damaging in education. It discourages learning at its core. True learning requires risk, curiosity, and the willingness to try again after failing. But when shame takes over, students begin to play it safe. They stick to what they already know, they avoid challenges, and they prioritize protecting themselves over growing. Empathy, on the other hand, creates the opposite effect. When students experience empathy in the classroom, they feel safe enough to take risks, ask questions, and embrace challenges. Empathy does not mean lowering expectations or avoiding difficult conversations, it means recognizing that struggle is a natural part of learning and responding in a way that builds confidence rather than fear. It means seeing a student's frustration and saying, "I know this is hard, but I believe in you," instead of, "You should already know this." It means recognizing that every student learns at a different pace and creating an environment where mistakes are treated as opportunities rather than failures. One of the most powerful ways educators can practice empathy is by acknowledging their own learning experiences. When a teacher shares a story about a time they struggled with a subject, made a mistake, or faced self-doubt, it shows students that difficulty is normal and that they are not alone. It also models resilience, showing students that success is not about avoiding failure but about pushing through it. When students hear, "I struggled with math too, but here's what helped me," or, "I remember feeling stuck in this subject, and that's okay," they are more likely to approach their own challenges with perseverance instead of shame. Empathy also requires listening. Students often carry unspoken fears about learning: fear of failure, fear of looking foolish, fear of not being good enough. When an educator takes the time to ask, "What's making this difficult for you?" or, "What do you need to feel more confident?" it shifts the focus from judgment to understanding. It helps students see that they are not defined by their struggles, and it encourages them to engage in the learning process without fear. The impact of shame and empathy extends beyond academics. A student who experiences shame in the classroom may begin to see themselves as incapable in other areas of life. They may avoid challenges, hesitate to express their opinions, or develop a fear of failure that follows them into adulthood. On the other hand, a student who experiences empathy learns that struggle does not define them. They learn that their worth is not tied to their grades, that their abilities can grow with effort, and that setbacks are not something to be ashamed of. They develop resilience, confidence, and a mindset that allows them to continue learning throughout life. It is important to recognize that shame is not always intentional. Many educators, parents, and peers do not realize when they are creating a culture of shame rather than support. A teacher who says, "This is an easy question, you should already know this," may not mean to make a student feel ashamed, but the message received is that struggling is unacceptable. A parent who says, "Why can't you be more like your sibling?" may think they are motivating their child, but the message received is that they are not good enough as they are. Small moments of shame, even when unintended, can have lasting effects. Shame does not only come from educators or parents, it can also come from peers. A student who laughs at a classmate's mistake, a group that excludes someone from a study session, or a peer who dismisses someone's ideas can create an environment where students feel unsafe to participate. This is why fostering a culture of empathy is not just the responsibility of teachers, but of everyone in the learning community. When students learn to support each other, to offer encouragement instead of criticism, and to see struggle as part of the process rather than something to be ridiculed, the entire learning environment changes. Creating a culture of empathy requires intentional action. It means choosing words carefully, focusing on effort rather than just results, and responding to mistakes with encouragement rather than frustration. It means shifting from asking, "Why don't you understand this?" to, "What can we do to help you understand?" It means replacing, "You're wrong," with, "Let's figure this out together." It means celebrating progress, even when it is small, and reminding students that their ability to learn is not fixed, it grows with effort, practice, and support. The choice between shame and empathy in education is a choice between limiting students and empowering them. When students experience shame, they learn to fear failure, to hide their struggles, and to believe that they are not enough. But when they experience empathy, they learn that their struggles do not define them, that they are capable of growth, and that they are valued regardless of their mistakes. They learn that learning is not about being perfect, it is about being brave enough to keep trying. In the end, education is not just about teaching facts and skills, it is about shaping how students see themselves and their ability to grow. If we want to create a generation of confident, curious, and resilient learners, we must choose empathy over shame, every single time. Because the way we make students feel about learning will stay with them long after they leave the classroom. And the choice to lift them up, to encourage them, and to believe in them is a choice that will shape their future far beyond their education. Bravery is often imagined as grand, heroic acts standing up against injustice, taking enormous risks, or facing danger head-on. While these moments of courage certainly exist, they are not the only forms of bravery. True bravery, the kind that shapes our lives in meaningful ways, begins in small steps. It is not always about dramatic gestures but about the everyday choices we make to push beyond our comfort zones. Bravery is raising your hand in class when you are unsure of the answer, speaking your truth even when your voice shakes, or trying again after failing. It is built in quiet moments of fear and uncertainty, where we choose to keep moving forward despite our doubts. One of the most important truths about bravery is that it does not come fully formed. No one wakes up one morning suddenly fearless. Instead, bravery is developed over time, one small step at a time. It begins the moment we decide to face something that scares us, no matter how insignificant it may seem. A child learning to ride a bike takes their first brave step by letting go of the training wheels. A student struggling with public speaking shows courage by practicing their speech in front of just one friend. A person overcoming self-doubt demonstrates bravery simply by showing up, even when they feel unprepared. These moments may seem small, but they are the foundation of greater courage. The fear of failure is one of the biggest barriers to bravery. Many people hold back from taking even the smallest step toward their goals because they are afraid of making mistakes, looking foolish, or not measuring up. But bravery is not about being fearless, it is about taking action despite fear. If we wait until we feel completely ready or certain, we may never begin at all. The first step is often the hardest, but once taken, it creates momentum. Each time we choose to face our fears instead of running from them, we strengthen our courage and build the confidence to take on bigger challenges in the future. Bravery is also deeply personal. What feels like a small step for one person might be a huge leap for another. For some, bravery is starting a new conversation with a stranger. For others, it is standing up for themselves in a difficult situation. For someone struggling with anxiety, simply leaving the house and facing the outside world can be an act of immense courage. It is important to recognize and celebrate these moments, rather than comparing them to what others consider brave. Courage is not about the size of the step but about the willingness to take it. In education and personal growth, bravery plays a crucial role. Learning itself is an act of courage because it requires us to admit what we do not know and open ourselves up to new ideas. It takes bravery to ask questions, to try something unfamiliar, or to challenge our own beliefs. In a classroom, a student who dares to say, "I don't understand," is not showing weakness but demonstrating strength. They are choosing growth over comfort, and in doing so, they inspire others to do the same. Teachers, too, must model bravery by embracing vulnerability, admitting when they do not have all the answers, and creating an environment where mistakes are not punished but seen as stepping stones toward improvement. Bravery also requires resilience. There will be moments when our steps forward feel small, and times when they do not immediately lead to success. There will be setbacks, disappointments, and moments of self-doubt. But the essence of bravery is not about avoiding failure, it is about continuing despite it. The most courageous people are not those who never fall, but those who rise after each fall. They understand that mistakes do not define them and that growth often comes from discomfort. Small acts of bravery also have a ripple effect. When one person chooses to be brave, it gives others permission to do the same. A student who speaks up in class encourages others to share their thoughts. A person who pursues their dreams despite uncertainty inspires others to chase their own. A leader who admits their fears and moves forward anyway shows those around them that courage is not about never feeling afraid but about acting in the face of it. Every act of bravery, no matter how small, sends a message: it is okay to take risks, to make mistakes, and to step into the unknown. Bravery is not about being perfect or fearless, it is about being willing. It is about taking the first step, even when it feels uncomfortable. It is about trusting that growth happens through action, not just through waiting for the right moment. It is about recognizing that each small act of courage builds upon the last, creating a foundation for greater bravery in the future. And most importantly, it is about understanding that bravery is a journey, not a destination. It is a practice, one that begins with a single small step. Thank you, my friends, for supporting my channel. If you enjoyed this, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. I appreciate each and every one of you. Thanks for watching.